Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, December 1st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It's here. A person in California has become the first in the U.S. to have an identified case of the Omicron variant of COVID-19. Governor Newsom and Dr. Fauci both alerting the public.
The individual was a traveler who returned from South Africa on November the 22nd and tested positive on November the 29th. The individual is self-quarantining, and all close contacts have been contacted, and all close contacts thus far have tested negative. The individual was fully vaccinated and experienced mild symptoms, which are improving at this point.
From what's known so far, the individual is in the San Francisco Bay Area. The news comes as scientists continue to study the risks posed by the new strain of the virus. Governor Newsom had this message for Californians.
Let's continue to do what we've done. Not only are we leading the nation in terms of administered doses of vaccine, 59.6 million, as I noted, but 92.1%. 92.1% of all Californians 18 and over have received at least one dose.
The Omicron variant is likely to turn up in San Diego sooner or later. When it does, it could very well be discovered by scientists at UC San Diego. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us the unique way they're keeping watch.
It's something we all do every day, and you could be forgiven for not giving a thought to where that wastewater goes after you flush. But at UC San Diego, a group of scientists thinks about it a lot.
So we've been regularly collecting wastewater from multiple sites across campus on a daily basis for a while now.
The wastewater is collected by these contraptions at various points across campus. As Dr. Lawrence says, they've been monitoring for COVID at UC San Diego for a while now, but now they're looking for the Omicron variant.
What's different is what we look for in the results. And so, for example, the Omicron variant has a deletion in the spike protein gene.
When the virus, in whatever variant, shows up, people who live or work in the building it came from are notified and asked to get a nasal swab test. The advantage to this method is that people don't have to do anything until a positive sample turns up.
So we think that we picked up cases that way. We also, as you might know, were able to pick up, say, the Delta variant earlier than we saw in individual testing.
UC San Diego also works with the San Diego Unified School District, which collects samples from numerous schools and sends them to the lab for testing, casting a wide net to detect any COVID outbreaks, but now, especially Omicron. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The CDC is considering more robust COVID testing for all air travelers entering the U.S. in light of the Omicron variant. New rules would require everyone to test negative 1 day before entering the country and then again upon arriving. That could apply to U.S. citizens and permanent residents, even if they are vaccinated. Right now, vaccinated travelers have up to 3 days prior to travel to show a negative test. On Monday, President Biden banned all travel from South Africa and 7 neighboring nations except for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. San Diego's vaccination deadline for city employees is here. They must be fully vaccinated or apply for an exemption by today or face getting fired. The police and fire departments have some of the highest rates of unvaccinated employees. The city says those who refuse to comply with the mandate will get a letter stating they are in danger of losing their jobs and have 30 days to comply. Then the city will begin the termination process for those who fail to do so. Infectious disease experts say vaccines are key to stopping development of more variants. Today, KPBS Speak City Heights reporter Jacob Ayer visited a vaccination event at Hoover High School.
Students, staff, and community members over 12 years old lined up at Hoover High School today to receive their first, second, or booster COVID-19 vaccines inside of the school's newly renovated theater. Hoover High student Angie Quintero came with her mother to the event. Each of them got their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. Quintero says she came to the event as the vaccination deadline is quickly approaching for her school district.
Well, I was supposed to get it eventually, because if not, I think students are going to have to go back to online. And honestly, I don't do great online, so I decided to get it.
The vaccination clinic was done in partnership with La Maestra Community Health Centers and follows up on a similar event from 3 weeks prior. For school nurse Candace Geyer, providing easy access to getting the COVID-19 vaccine is key.
It is a bit ironic that our theater, this is really the type of performance we've hosted so far, are several vaccine clinics. So it's accessible right from the sidewalk on El Cajon. People walk right in, they register, there's not a wait, they get their shot, and then they're monitored in our comfortable theater seating for 15 minutes, and they're good to go.
Quintero and her mother both got their first dose of the vaccine, but she was a bit worried before receiving her shot.
Like, some people say it's bad or it's not going to do anything for COVID, but I'm just going to get it, you know? I'm a little nervous, so.
While anxious, Quintero understands the safety net that the vaccine provides.
Feels good getting vaccinated afterwards. You just feel good, you know?
Geyer says Hoover High School hopes to offer other similar events in the future that also provide the vaccine for children 5 and older. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
The Alpine Union School District is once again planning a move in response to parental demands for free choice. The district was among the first in the county to reopen last year as the pandemic continued. It also tried to defy the state's mandatory mask mandate. Superintendent Dr. Rich Newman wants to create an option for students who don't get the COVID vaccine to learn at an off-campus location taught by the district's teachers.
How do we support all students? I know people want to make a political movement out of this and believe that I have a political stake in this. I believe, again, if you read every letter I put out from day one, it is my moral responsibility to provide in-person learning to students where possible, when safe, going forward.
Alpine Union has about 1,500 students in 5 schools. The district's dashboard shows no current active COVID cases among staff or students. The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments today in a case that could overturn Roe v. Wade. This is considered the most consequential case on abortion in decades. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado has details on the arguments and reaction from local women's rights advocates.
Outside the courthouse, protests. Inside, justices heard arguments challenging a 2018 Mississippi law that makes most abortions illegal after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Chief Justice John Roberts clarified what upholding the Mississippi law could mean.
Your first question, and the only one on which we granted review, was whether all pre-viability prohibitions on elective abortions are unconstitutional.
In 1973, Roe v. Wade set a precedent that made abortions legal nationwide. This current case asks if abortion should be a state issue.
I do think it would be overruling Roe versus Wade, regardless of whether the Supreme Court says that explicitly or indirectly. It would be an overruling of that decision.
Maggie Schroeder is with the Lawyers Club of San Diego. She says this decision will go beyond states' rights and the state of Mississippi.
There are at least 20 states currently that have restrictive abortion legislation pending and sort of ready to go. And what we can expect is those states will enact similar or even more restrictive abortion legislation.
During oral arguments, Mississippi Solicitor General Scott Stewart had harsh words for Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood.
Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey haunt our country. They have no basis in the Constitution. They have no home in our history or traditions.
Dara DeGiorno Johnson, the president of Planned Parenthood Pacific Southwest, says 1 in 4 women have had an abortion, and most people know someone who has.
It really saddens me that if you're being told when to choose and how you're supposed to start or plan your family, no one should get in between that decision. That should be a decision between you and the people in your family that love and care for you, but certainly not the government.
Sarah Becerra, the president of the San Diego's Women's March, says women have been fighting for their rights for generations, and this case shows the need to continue their mission.
If we're not fighting for our rights every day, if we're not fighting for our democracy and our ability to make these choices, to have this autonomy, it's a very, very fragile thing that can go away. So let's keep fighting together.
The Supreme Court is expected to rule on this case next summer. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
California lawmakers are debating a bill that would prevent a law enforcement agency from investigating its own officers when they shoot people. Right now, these investigations are conducted by the officers' own departments. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregeser found that in those investigations, officers can get different treatment than the people that they shoot. A warning, this story contains graphic images.
In the early morning hours of a Sunday in March 2016, two men made choices that led to police investigations. But how the investigations were conducted and their outcomes couldn't have been more different. The first was Jose Blanco, an undocumented immigrant who had gotten into a fight outside a 7-Eleven in Vista. Then Blanco saw a group of men rushing toward him. He and his wife jumped in his car and tried to get away.
Mi intención fue rescatar a mi esposa y que no nos golpearan. Pero cuando llegaron los demás me asusté más.
Blanco didn't know it, but the men who rushed him were off-duty sheriff's deputies. The deputies surrounded Blanco's car. He first threw it in reverse, hitting one of the deputies, then lurched forward. That's when Deputy Jason Phillips ended up on the hood of the car.
I was either straddling the hood or laying literally on the windshield because I could see his white T-shirt and see him driving. And I knew I was going to either fall off the vehicle and be crushed, or he was going to accelerate at a high rate of speed onto, East Vista Way, and I would be badly injured or killed. And at that point, I discharged my revolver through the windshield, trying to stop him from driving off.
Though Phillips was not working, not in uniform, he was armed with a concealed handgun. And he'd spent the night drinking 2 to 3 shots of tequila and 3 to 4 beers, he later told investigators. He shot Blanco multiple times, but Blanco survived. Blanco told detectives he had no idea the men who rushed his car were police.
No sabía quiénes eran porque no traían ropa. Si hubiera sabido que son policías, uno cuántas cosas mira que te disparan y te matan. ¿Usted cree que yo quiero morir?
Later that morning, both Blanco and Phillips were questioned by detectives. But that's where the similarities of their experiences end. Phillips' questioning was straightforward, even friendly at times. He had a lawyer with him, and the detectives helped him arrive at answers.
My drinking had stopped significantly earlier in the evening, and I'm not sure how to word it.
Let me ask you the question. I think what he's getting at was, at any time during the evening did you feel that you were intoxicated?
No.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
Meanwhile, Blanco was interviewed by sheriff's detectives in the hospital without a lawyer. The detective challenged him over and over, telling him he was lying.
Porque no me vas a decir que no te acuerdas. Yo sé que no eres mentiroso. No es momento ahorita de decir mentiras.
Sí.
¿Cómo fue que les pegaste?
Te lo juro que no me recuerdo. Que le haya pegado yo a alguien de reversa, no.
No, pues así como, así, digo, no me estás diciendo nada. ¿A qué le tienes miedo? ¿Por qué estás?
It is the fox watching the hen house.
Dave Myers is a retired sheriff's commander who's undergone internal affairs interviews. He says investigators often take a friendly approach toward their fellow officers.
It's flawed and it's intended to benefit the law enforcement agency.
The sheriff's department would not agree to an interview for this story. Phillips's lawyer, Richard Pinkard, says officers who shoot suspects are properly scrutinized. They can face multiple investigations from their own department's homicide division, then internal affairs, then outside agencies. He wrote in an email to KPBS, the 2 separate in-depth investigations into Phillips's actions were appropriate under the circumstances. This incident was thoroughly investigated by the Sheriff's Department and then independently investigated by the District Attorney's Special Operations Division, he wrote. The DA concluded that Deputy Phillips's use of lethal force was legally justified under prevailing law, given the totality of the circumstances, which is why Deputy Phillips was not charged. In a KPBS review of more than 300 internal records from local police agencies, only one officer has ever been charged for shooting someone. That happened last summer when Sheriff's Deputy Aaron Russell was charged with murder after he shot a mentally ill man who escaped from a police vehicle and was running away. The KPBS review also found just 5 cases that result in any punishment for the officer. This case with Phillips was one of them, but it wasn't for shooting Blanco. He was reassigned and suspended without pay for 4 days for violating department policy. The violation was for carrying a gun while he was drinking. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And to search the police records and see a map of where these incidents occurred, you can go to kpbs.org/police records. Get vaccinated or have your pay withheld. That is the message from U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to members of the military. The warning was sent in a memo to National Guard troops about the vaccine requirement. Austin wrote that Pentagon funds cannot be used, quote, for payment of duties performed under Title 32 for members of the National Guard who do not comply. Title 32 refers to operations that are performed by the National Guard under state orders and paid for by the federal government. Austin also added a restriction on training, drills, and deployment for those who do not get vaccinated. A strategy to fight another global virus is being unveiled today. Today is World AIDS Day, and President Biden is releasing a new plan to fight new HIV infections as well as improve the lives of those living with the virus. In an effort to reduce health inequity, certain groups are being prioritized with the goal to end the epidemic before the year 2030. It has been 40 years since the CDC reported the first case of AIDS.
We're going to be watching as some of our coastal cities are going to cool down a little bit over the next couple of days. After being in the 70s, we're going to get back down to the 60s, but it does look like things are going to trend back up later this weekend and heading into next week. We're also tracking this week upper level low. It doesn't really have moisture with it, but it could bring in a little bit more in the way of cloud cover moving forward. Temperatures as we head into tonight getting down to 43 in Oceanside, 48 in El Cajon, 46 for you out towards Mount Laguna. And then for your day on Thursday, we're looking at a good amount of sunshine through the afternoon hours. Back in the upper 60s for San Diego, Chula Vista, mid 70s from Ramona out towards El Cajon and Borrego Springs, one of our warmer spots, holding on to the mid 80s. The pattern for the next couple of days looks to continue to feature temperatures that are well above average across the interior spots here of the southwest. But near the coast, again, we're looking at a little bit of a cool down before we warm up again as we head into the weekend, or I should say as we head into the later part of the weekend and into next week. Near the coast, we go from the mid to upper 60s back into the 70s on Sunday and maybe even close to 80 degrees by the time we get to next Monday. Further inland, temperatures in the low to mid 70s for you, cooling off through Saturday, and then a big bump back up to 80 degrees on Sunday and into the mid 80s as we head into next Monday. In the mountains, temperatures going from the mid to upper 50s for you, briefly dipping into the upper 40s on Saturday before we rebound into the 50s Sunday and then 60s as we head into next Monday. And in the deserts, really not seeing a whole lot of change here, maybe just by a couple of degrees from day in, day out. Generally looking to stay in the low to mid 80s moving forward. So again, good amount of sunshine, not a lot of moisture. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
The price of homes in San Diego was the key focus today as a group of real estate experts met in a virtual meeting. Much like last year, they say the issue with the lack of inventory will be status quo for the foreseeable future as labor and supply shortages hinder new homes being built. That drives up the cost of local property.
Multiple bids are coming in from many different buyers on that home that's for sale because inventory is so limited in lots of markets, and buyers are competing against each other. It's almost like an auction market with buyers competing against each other to get the winning bid.
The cost of a home in San Diego was up 22.6% this year, trailing behind Las Vegas and Phoenix, which have also seen a housing cost increase. Even renters are feeling the pinch, with rental prices going up 6.2% in the last month in San Diego. Experts say the lack of home inventory will continue the rental price surge next year.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the Supreme Court hears an abortion case with the potential to overturn Roe versus Wade. That's coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Hi, I'm John Decker. Thank you for watching Evening Edition on KPBS. Now more than ever, local news is essential to our democracy, and KPBS is committed to delivering local news in San Diego and the Imperial Valley. Evening Edition, along with our other services on radio, digital, and podcasts, is how our news team delivers the news to you. How can we do it? With a passion for accurate storytelling and a commitment to excellence in journalism. But most importantly, we do it with your support. Our members, our viewers. If you've already donated to KPBS, then we thank you very much for your continued support. If you haven't had a chance to donate, now is a great time to show how much you appreciate the news we deliver. So please go online and choose a level, pick a gift at kpbs.org, or call or text donate at 1-800-576-5727, and thank you.
Cases of coronavirus in animals are popping up at zoos across the country. Recently, 3 snow leopards died from complications at a Nebraska zoo, but not every animal is at risk. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman went to the San Diego Zoo to find out how the virus impacts animals and how they are being protected.
The past 20 months have really been quite interesting for us.
Back in January, the San Diego Zoo saw its first coronavirus cases.
We had the first reported case in gorillas, but since then there have been zoos around the world that have had positive cases, not only in gorillas and tigers, but in cougars. Snow leopards seem to be particularly susceptible to the virus.
Dr. Nadine Lamberski is Chief Conservation and Wildlife Health Officer at the San Diego Zoo. She's been leading efforts to protect animals from the same virus that's killed millions of humans.
We know from scientific studies that carnivores, particularly cats, big cats, and primates, are extremely susceptible to this virus.
Between the zoo's main location and their safari park, over 20 cases have been confirmed in animals. Staff usually are not able to get a nasal swab, so they test fecal matter. Lamberski says sick animals have symptoms that are similar to humans.
Some animals just go off food. Some are lethargic. Some develop a cough. Some develop a fever. Some develop all those things on different days. And each case has been a little bit unique, but we're very fortunate that all of the wildlife in our care that have contracted the virus have fully recovered.
Cases are believed to come from infected staff who are asymptomatic working closely with animals. Over the summer, 2 snow leopards tested positive.
And it was a very, very tense time, not knowing, which way they were going to go. And this was prior to them being fully vaccinated.
The zoo was one of the first to begin using a COVID-19 vaccine approved for animals.
Since the beginning of the year, more than 250 high-risk animals have gotten their COVID vaccinations here at the zoo. That includes all of the big cats, including that leopard up there.
Lamberski says they have used all of their supply, but if more became available, booster doses could be considered.
Particularly because of the new variants that are coming out, and we would want to give our animals the best chance to fight off that infection so that they can have the best lives possible.
Zoo staff wear face coverings and try to limit their time spent indoors around animals. There have been reported breakthrough infections in some that were already vaccinated, but their symptoms were mild.
Look, a monkey.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And here's another look at today's top stories. The first case of someone infected with the Omicron variant of COVID-19 in the U.S. has shown up right here in California. UC San Francisco researchers identified the variant in a traveler who had returned to the Bay Area from South Africa. The person was vaccinated against COVID-19 but had not received a booster shot. They were said to be experiencing mild symptoms. And here at home, scientists at UC San Diego are on the lookout for the new variant. They have been monitoring wastewater from dorms and other buildings for months now. If Omicron or any other variant shows up, people in the building where it came from are asked to take a nasal swab test. Scientists say this method has proven very effective in staying ahead of infections. The San Diego Symphony is taking its holiday events outside this year, playing at the new Rady Shell at Jacobs Park. They will be playing along to the movies Frozen and the Muppets Christmas Carol, along with 3 more traditional concerts. The Symphony CEO says they've brought the traditionally indoor concerts outdoors, in part because people feel safer being outside at full-capacity, large-scale events. The Rady Shell can hold 3,700 people.
That's one of the fun things about having an outdoor venue. You know, come have your warm soup, sit at your seat, have your hot cocoa, and stay cozy. You can enjoy your wine or hot toddy at your seats.
There's also a whole new holiday menu, which can be enjoyed from a picnic blanket on the lawn or with table service down front. Tickets are still available for the 5 holiday concerts, but some are limited. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.